So this is audio only. There's a hand up. I'm not sure if it's you, Alison, or if it's David. Would you?
It's me.
Yeah, that's not a surprise. Carry on.
Oh, my reputation, yes. Khalid, thank you very much indeed. An interesting study. And particularly, I do an awful lot of exercise, and they're all in groups and classes, and I find it incredibly difficult to motivate myself to do exercise on my own. So this is an interesting perspective. The other thing I was wondering about was, are you keeping a track of gender in this? Are you looking to have see what the difference between men and women is in the reaction to the study?
Hi, Alison. Thanks for the question. So it's not sort of one of our outcomes in terms of analyzing that and to see what the difference is, but it will be noted in the data. Of course, everything's going to be anonymous in terms of the data, so you won't be able to know who's who. But it will be something that's noted when we get the numbers down. It will be something that's asked whether there's male female, but it isn't something we'll be specifically looking at to compare the two genders or sexes yet.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Khalid?
Mute, please.
But has anyone asked how do we get onto this research, and where do we go from here if you're interested?
Thanks for the question, Julia. Yeah, so basically, as me and David have been sort of talking, liaising about this. Once the ethical approval gets, the ethical submission that I put in gets approved, I will then sort of get David to take information from people who are interested, and then I will contact them after that, just to get to follow up with them to see if they're still interested. From both of the groups I've spoken to so far, yourselves and the young Parkinson one. But basically it's just all about getting that ethical approval, because before I get that, I'm not really able to sort of ethically take anyone's names or details or anything like that. But once that gets approved, David will he said he will help me get people's contact information, and I'll contact them from there on.
So I'll act as Khalid's agent in this matter. Once he has approval, we'll find out who of the people that have registered an interest today are still interested, and I'll pass their email details on to Khalid.
I have a question.
Mark, you go ahead, and then we'll have the other question in a second.
Thanks. Khalid, I have a question about some of the practicalities of wearing the tracker. For example, is it something you remove if you go for a swim, or do you remove it when you go to bed at night? Can you say a bit more about that, please?
Thanks for the question, Mark. So the tracker, the ActivePal, it sort of wears on the thigh, as I said, with sort of adhesive that you place there, and it's not waterproof. So things like swimming, yeah, you would take it off. Showering, things like that, you would take it off. But in terms of using it, for sleep and that, it wouldn't be necessary. Just in the sense that we're kind of expecting someone to be sedentary in that time because they're going to be lying down. So in terms of measuring the data, they could keep it on if they want, but it's not going to be something we'd be measuring, just due to the fact that we expect you to be sort of lying down during sleep and being sedentary.
I've actually worn one of those things on my leg for a few weeks. They're okay. They don't get in the way. Yeah, it's just removing it if we have a shower and stuff, getting it back on again, but it's very easy. and it doesn't, it doesn't, you don't feel it, or anything.
Yeah, they're quite anonymous. So like once you have it on, you don't really tend to realize it's there until obviously you need to take it off. That's the only sort of downside to them. But yeah, as you said, Julia, they're quite they look quite anonymous after you get used to it.
Martine, you had an electronic hand up.
Yeah, I had a very quick question, I think, and it may have been mentioned, I may have missed it, Khalid, but I assume that you are allocating people to one of the two groups. Is that right? When people sign up,
Yeah, that's right. I won't be sort of deciding them, by like choice. It will be random allocation. So once we have the numbers, it's just going to be an equal split down the middle, or as close to a split down the middle. But that will be randomly assigned, just to keep things a bit more
scientific.
Free of bias.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any more questions for Khalid?
Also, if there isn't questions, anyone can sort of suggest things that if later, if there's between your forum, or if you have guys have like a forum board or anything like that, things that you think maybe would be difficult or challenging in terms of these things, so then we can maybe look at that and analyze that. So if you guys have any, doesn't have to be now, if you think of it later, just something you think perhaps might not be feasible. Just let myself or David know at some point, whether it be now or later, and we can look at that.
Is there anyone else wanting to ask Khalid anything?
I may have missed it, but how many people are you hoping to have on the study?
Thanks for the question, Alison. I didn't actually mention that, but basically, we want obviously as many as we can get, but our aim is just due to the nature of these kind of studies, and just the location that we're in and where we are in terms of population. The aim for this type of study and the time frame because of it would be around about, the low end. We'd obviously want more, but sort of 10 to 20. But of course, more is better. But around about 10 to 20 would be, especially that top end, would be ideal. But yeah, with these types of studies, and just the nature of it and things like that, it's quite hard to predict. But that would be the goal.
I was just thinking that by the time although you're not going to be looking at things like gender or time since diagnosis or age and so forth, you'll have a whole stack of wonderful mineable data by the time you finished. And I just thought it might be useful to look at where you might take not just this research, but the data further. I'd be interesting to see. I mean, I'd be fascinated to see whether women react differently to the mindfulness than men, and whether age makes a difference, and also the whole idea of prescription is interesting. If something is prescribed, how does that impact, or how does that influence the take up of the exercise and the mindfulness, and that kind of stuff? You've got some wonderful possibilities moving forward on this.
Yeah, exactly, Alison. And it sounds to me like you've got a good grasp of these things, because all of these ideas that you're saying to me are things that I find actually really interesting. And it'll be, if I had the time and the resources, I'd love to look at these things. And yeah, as you said, I'll have this sort of data. So maybe for future studies, if there are any, or anything like that, it could be something I look at. And as I said to David before, I am also doing an internship at the Anne Rowland Clinic, and they are open sometimes to suggestions for types of studies, because there's always studies going on over there, mostly with other diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, but they are usually quite receptive to suggestions. So that could be something that, you know, could be hopefully one day yeah, looked into. But thanks for that information, Alison.
David, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Khalid, what provision, in case I've missed this, will the study involve monitoring blood pressure and heart rate?
We won't be actively measuring it, but we will be giving you basically a PARQ, which is basically like a questionnaire to assess self-reported health metrics. So, for example, if someone didn't know their blood pressure, we would be able to take it on that first visit for the functional outcomes. But if people are sort of up to date with their physical health statuses, because for the exercise to give out the exercise prescription, we will be, you know, we do have to test certain things, or to be made aware from someone's medical records that they are, you know, they have blood pressure levels of X or Y, Z and things like that, just to keep things safe. So people know that it's self-reported.
Right.
We can use that data, and if they don't, we do have provisions to do blood pressure and also heart rate.
Okay, thanks, Khalid.
Thanks. Cheers.
Is there anything else before we wrap up? Okay, so I'd like to thank Khalid for talking to us today. Khalid has mentioned that he's doing an internship and rolling clinic at the moment, and you know, we wish him well in the completion of his honours program, and with whatever he goes on to do next. We'll look forward to hearing when the study has been approved ethically, and I'll pass on the details to well, those who are here today, but also to other members of the research interest group and the Parkinson's branch, if to see if anyone else is interested in signing up for your study. Could you unmute your microphones and just give Khalid a round of applause to thank him in the conventional way?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Khalid. And
thank you very much.
You'll be in touch when you've got some positive news for me to pass on to members of the group.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'd just like to thank everyone as well for attending today, and for giving me their time and their patience, and the questions as well, because it's good. It's a good way for me to think about, you know, improving the study and things like that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye to everyone then.
Bye now.